What's up, Habs fans? Welcome back to this week's edition of the Habs Fan Forum. I'm Ben Danker, your host, and here, of course, at the Habs Fan Forum, this is where us fans get to have our voices heard. All right, this week I'm going to be talking about free agency and a little bit of my off-season wish list. I had some things right after the end of a playoff run that I'm like, okay, we need to identify these needs. This is what I want to see changed. And we knew there were some decisions coming up from management. Now, we need just anything to take our minds off of the Habs' tire fire of management decisions over the past couple weeks. So this is going to be a fun one today where I'm talking about roster moves, wish lists, kind of what they're signing and what I kind of hope still happens. Before I get into that, though, I will say at Habs Fan Forum, we're proudly a part of Rocket Sports Media and, of course, the Hockey Podcast Network. And we are all sponsored by DraftKings. DraftKings, who is the leader of daily fantasy sports, literally makes payday every day. I think they paid out over $7 billion across all sports and to different users, of course, which that's a lot. So right now, if you can go to DraftKings, download the app, and as a new user, use the promo code THPN, and you can win some great free prizes, courtesy of Rocket Sports Media. Alright, so looking at their cup run, there were two major needs that had to be addressed. And it wasn't really going to be an easy solution this year, but one, they needed more scoring. Of course, they weren't scoring enough goals. In the regular season, I think they had they were 17th in the league. And secondly, in the playoffs themselves, they were trailing powerhouse teams like Tampa. But most importantly, was the defense. They had to rely on those four Clydesdales. They obviously had no trust in their bottom pairing. Merrill and Gustafsson. We won't go into that too much. But they had to fix that. So changes were needed on defense and changes were needed up front scoring. Those were two major needs. Now, how they're going to address that? A little complicated. So let's go into some of the things that they had to address this offseason, some of the signings they had coming up, some of the tasks they had in front of them. Okay, I wanted them to minimize the damage of the expansion draft. I didn't want to lose a Lehkonen, an Armia, or a Sherratt. I'll put Allen in this. I didn't want to lose Allen either. I wasn't willing to put Price exposed. Again, another mind-boggling decision. But at the end of the day, end result, they didn't lose any of those four players, which is beneficial. So expansion draft, while bumpy on the way there, we came out okay, just losing a prospect piece in Fleury. Okay, I didn't want them to overpay on or bring back some of these players which were just obviously not needed. Tatar and Stahl, two players who Tatar obviously couldn't crack the lineup and had a $5 million cap hit. I don't know where he's going to re-sign at, but nowhere near there for the Canadiens. Stahl, he had a little bit of resurgence in the playoffs, injury troubles and that, but not sure he's going to be playing hockey. Wasn't really thinking about bringing him back. And of course, Deneau. I did not want them to overpay and give a long-term contract to a middle six center that's going to take away minutes from KK and from some of the centers. At $5.5 million by 6 years, which he got in LA. So, needless to say, did not want that contract. Good luck in LA, Deneau. Wish you all the best. I did want them to re-sign KK, Armia, Lehkonen, and Perry. KK, get him on a bridge. Armia and Lehkonen, I wanted them to come back on some affordable, longer-term deals. I think they were both making in that $2.5 million range. I know they were very close contracts. I'm going to have to re-sign him for a few more years. And they actually did re-sign Armia, I think 3.4 by 4 years. Love that player. He can play up and down the lineup. Really key on that penalty kill. Not quite so one-dimensional as a Paul Byron where that contract can kind of hurt you a little more. A little high on the value, but like I said, he's a valuable player. Perry, wanted them to bring him back on a league min. What a heart guy. Now, those were some of the decisions they had to make with the roster they have. Now, let's look at some of these, wish lists. So, one, a top four defenseman. I don't know how they're going to replace Shea Weber. Even before they lost Shea Weber, though, a left side top four pairing, puck-moving defenseman was a huge need. Now you kind of got the right and the left, and I'll go over some roster juggling they're going to have to do there. But a top 4D, a middling center, someone who can play up and down from the second to the fourth line. They have KK, Evans, and Paling. There's a couple more years where Paling and Evans are going to need some support. I do want to get them the minutes they need. They are ready to play in the NHL, so I don't want a long-term deal like kind of the one Dano got. But bring in someone who has a little more experience. I heard Dvorak was rumored. Getzlaf was rumored. There's a couple other names, but those were two people that I saw that were like, ooh, intrigued. And of course, like I said, scoring up front, one can only dream. But Line and Eichel, there's lots of those are big ones. I would have loved that, and we'll see if they make a big splash. But as we'll get into in a second, they did bring in some goal scoring, and it brings up more questions. Okay, so moves they've made so far. They tendered KK. They re-signed Armia. They signed 2 depth players in like Dia and what's his name? Belpedio. The two of them, 2-way contracts. They brought in David Savard for 4 years at $3.5 million, a very similar Joel Edmondson type contract. I do think the term is too long. I do see a great spot for him, and we definitely need right-handed, right-shot D on that right side right now for the next 2 years. So I definitely see a spot for him. Term's a little long. So they also signed Cedric Paquette on a 1-year depth contract, I think $950,000. He's a 4th line center, 5th line center kind of player. We'll see where that fits. Chris Wyman, they're bringing in right-handed D. They do need that. He obviously wasn't scoring many points when he was in the NHL, and he hasn't played in the NHL in a few years. But he did show some offensive flashes in the KHL. I think he won the Defenseman of the Year award in the KHL. He obviously hasn't played. He had that big Ottawa Senators controversy with the Uber drive, and then got shipped around a few times and out to the KHL eventually. So this is kind of like a 1-year, let's see what you got kind of contract. And then finally, Mike Hoffman. They brought him in, 4.5 by 4 years. Or I think it's 3 years actually. He's a goal scorer. Guy puts the puck in the net. He's had 36 1 year, and even last year I think he had 36 points in 50-something games. So, a welcome goal scoring touch, power play scorer. I don't know a ton about his all-around game. I know he's pretty one-dimensional goal scorer, but let's see what kind of damage he can do. You got Caulfield on one side, you got Hoffman on the other. Interesting for a power play. So that's most of the moves they've made so far. And it brings up some questions. One, where did Drouin and Byron play in this lineup? I don't know. They really kind of failed to bring in that big punch top 4D. And then finally, they got a lot of youth at center. Some questions on this lineup still, and we're going to see how the rest of free agency shapes up. All right, that's it for this week's episode of the Habs Fan Forum. That's a fun one to do, break down the roster and play GM for a little bit. If you like the video, like down below, tell your friends, share the video, and of course subscribe, hit that bell to get future episodes. You can also subscribe to All Habs for all the best Montreal Canadiens coverage. Once again, I'm Ben Dank you. Thanks again for watching, and of course, woo! Go Habs, go, baby!